Hello and welcome to the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and today we continue our Fantasy Files series with a look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers backfield. For those that have been living under a rock for the past year, the Buccaneers were pretty damn spectacular last year. Not much of an issue going on at all for the third-ranked scoring offense, eighth-ranked scoring defense that, rose to the occasion better than literally anyone ever has against Patrick Mahomes in the freaking Super Bowl. But the one quote-unquote problem for this team last year was the backfield usage. Not that they didn't get an efficient running game. Leonard Fournette should be praised and called Lombardi Lenny the rest of his career for the performances he had in the playoffs. Yeah, some of it was usage, but that run he had against the Packers where he broke, 3-4 tackles, 6 spin on his way to the end zone. He played like you would expect the former number 4 overall pick to play. Got to tip your hat to him for that. And Ronald Jones, before he got banged up at the end of the year, he was looking like one of the better ball carriers, by God, not one of the better receivers, but just players with the ball in their hands. I don't want to say one of the better ones at the position, but he was pretty damn good. Like, he was making stuff happen when he got handoffs, but it just wasn't a situation that we could consistently get a wrap on in fantasy land. And if there's anything that fantasy football managers hate, it's when we don't know who's going to be getting the ball week to week. So focusing on what I was just saying about RoJo being the better running back with the ball in his hands, it's really, in my opinion, not up for debate. Again, all due respect for Fournette for what he did in the playoffs. We'll include the playoffs in our, stats I'm about to list. He just doesn't really hold a candle to what RoJo was able to do last year. In terms of PFF rushing grade, Leonard Fournette was 34th among 48 RBs with at least 100 carries, including the playoffs. RoJo was 11th. Missed tackles forced per attempt. Fournette was 34th. RoJo was 27th. Yards per carry, Fournette was tied for 35th. RoJo was 10th. Yards after contact per carry, Fournette was tied for 31st. RoJo was 6th. So, we're looking at a guy that was, again, by any metric you want to look at, better as a rusher, not so much as a receiver. PFF graded RoJo as the single worst receiver in the entire league. And the best way I can kind of sum this up for you by focusing on one play was when the Buccaneers were playing the Bears and RoJo leaks out, little angle route, and Brady throws him the ball, dives down, catches the ball. The ball never at any point hit the ground. RoJo rolls on into the end zone. Should have been a score. Refs say no. That was incomplete. And Ronald Jones stands there like, oh, damn, I dropped it, I guess. Like this, not even for a second. Like, you see a wide receiver on the sidelines dive for a ball that once we see on the camera is like laying on the ground for like a complete second. And they'll jump up and yell at the coach to throw a challenge flag, and they'll scream to the heavens that they caught it. RoJo actually did catch the ball and just seemed like, oh, dropped it. I'm not all that surprised, man. They overruled it, but for some reason they couldn't actually give him the touchdown. Evans scored the next play anyway. So whatever, but that tells you what you need to know about Ronald Jones's hands. As great as the, what was it, May or June video we had last offseason of RoJo catching passes from, some trainer, as great as his hands looked in there, I think we have plenty of evidence at this point in the NFL that RoJo is not the best receiver. And by not the best, I mean maybe the worst single receiver at the running back position. But again, we can't take away what he was able to do on the ground, had the big plays rolling for him. I believe a 98-yard run came against the Panthers. And don't be taking that away, people. I say it all the time. If you're good enough to get those yards to make that big play, we need to count it just like we do with the bad plays when they happen too. So RoJo is a better rusher than Lenny. Lenny is the better receiver, but again, it's more so by default than anything. Going back to those stats, if we look at Fournette among the 48 qualified backs, he was 29th in PFF receiving grade, 29th in yards per reception, tied for 20th in yards per route run. So you can call Fournette an average receiver, and I think that would be a little bit generous. Just watch the dude play. You don't even need to go that deep into the stats. One of the easiest ways I thought to kind of tell what fantasy analysts were a little bit full of shit last year going into 2020 were those that were saying like Fournette was a great receiver. He caught 76 passes for 522 yards in 2019. That's why he was as productive as he was on that atrocious Jaguars offense. That doesn't mean you're a great receiver when you're just able to catch, 76 of 100 targets. Okay. Credit to him for doing it. I'm not saying he's horrendous, but just because you catch a lot of passes doesn't make you a great receiver. As we've seen over time, occasionally mediocre talents do get handed elite level workloads, even though they don't necessarily demand it. The problem is, I think the Buccaneers have a little bit better ammo to not really give him as many targets last year, because RoJo and Fournette, they combined for 89 targets a season ago. I don't see that happening this year with Giovani Bernard in town and Ke'Shawn Vaughn entering his second year in the league. I say it with all due respect to CJ Precise, who happens to be on this Tampa Bay team. Precise is someone where I firmly believe that for about 12 seconds in that Eagles-Seahawks game, like 4 or 5 years ago, when Precise went like 80 yards, I think for those 12 seconds, he was the best running back on this planet, just like Martavis Bryant was the best receiver on this planet for like 15 seconds when he had that crazy touchdown against the Cardinals where he stiffied Tyrann Mathieu. But enough about CJ Precise and Martavis Bryant. Looking at Giovanni Bernard, I think he is going to be the receiver over Ke'Shawn. Why bring him in if you didn't plan on featuring him ahead of Ke'Shawn Vaughn? So Giovanni Bernard, we all know him for the mustache, but he's somehow only 29 years old. Now, remember, we've been clear about this. Raheem Mostert is the youngest 29-year-old in the world. Giovanni Bernard very well could be the oldest, but he's just been solid, people. He has not missed a game since 2018, and he's been able to just go out there and do his thing. I mean, one of the biggest rants I think I had this past season was when Zach Taylor benched Gio for losing his first fumble, and I think what was like 5 or 6 years as a ball carrier. So I don't think he was necessarily treated all that right in his final year with the Bengals. Just realized he was still, a more than solid back with what he was asked to do. I'm not saying Gio should be confused, with Alvin Kamara or Austin Eckler or anything like that. Just realized he's caught at least 30 passes in every single season of his career. And I think he kind of possesses that sort of nuanced level in the passing game as a blocker and all that will make Brady feel far more comfortable with him on the field than anyone else. Maybe I'm wrong. Ke'Shawn Vaughn's there too. It is year 2 for him, and it would make sense that Bruce Arians puts more on his plate. Again, though, I just don't really see the reasoning for bringing in Gio if they really wanted to feature Vaughn and give him more of a chance to do it. The good news for all these guys involved, this offense, once again, looks absolutely loaded. TB12 is back. His arm looks as good as ever it did all of last year. The only real issue for him was pressure, and he was actually one of the 6 or 7 most sensitive quarterbacks to pressure last season in terms of his yards per attempt when kept clean versus when under pressure. Good news is Brady knows this. He gets the ball out faster than just about anyone. And because of that, the offensive line was still able to keep defenders off him by and large most of the year. They bring back everybody. Every single Super Bowl starter is back on this team, which is a testament to, GM Jason Litch and everyone else involved with the organization. But this is PFF's 5th-ranked offensive line entering 2021. We got Brady, Evans, Godwin, AB. They're going to be putting up points all over the place. I mean, hell, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, Jalen Darden's getting some love. OJ Howard's back. Gronk's back again. Cam Brate, the most efficient red zone scorer in the freaking 21st century, is back. We got everywhere to go with the ball. And these running backs, at worst, will at least be players involved in the top 5 scoring offense. So the one thing, though, people, that is not good is that Bruce Arians has already come out and told us that he's not here to please us fantasy football players. Specifically, Arians said this. Let me get the date. Arians said this on June 15th. I'm recording this on June 30th. So 2 weeks ago, Arians said, I know fantasy doesn't like that, but those two guys, RoJo is one of the best runners I've been around. Lenny had that great run in the playoffs. He showed what they drafted him for in the top 5. So we're blessed to have this group of backs with Ke'Shawn and Gio. It's a hell of a group. He wouldn't name a starting running back. He said both those guys are starters in my mind. Whoever goes out first doesn't really matter to me, but that will be determined in camp. Of all the positions, probably the one where those two guys will compete, but they're both going to play. They're so talented. They bring so much to the table. Hopefully, if they're both healthy, they are splitting time. Also said Ke'Shawn's made a nice move, but he has to be a better special teams player right now because of what's in front of him. But I have all the confidence in the world in him as a runner and receiver, and Gio has a nice added presence back there. So, we'll see what's what, but I just don't see the Ke'Shawn Vaughn breakout coming by any stretch of the imagination. It seems like we're looking more at what the Buccaneers were doing in 2019 when this was a miserable, even more miserable backfield to be a part of in Fantasyland. That was when it was RoJo, Peyton Barber, and Dari Ogunbowale, who his name I can spell now. That's how annoying it was. I learned how to spell Ogunbowale without even having to look it up. But with that team, I'm pulling up the snap counts right now. It was just horrific. It was, what we want is one running back. And in 2019, Ronald Jones had 36% of the snaps. Dari had 32% of the snaps. And Peyton Barber had 30% of the snaps. Three backs, none of them over 40%. That's going to be a sheesh from me, ladies and mostly gentlemen. So it takes us to our PFF Lily stat. And it's that despite all this, annoyance last year with not knowing who was going to be the guy, if we would have had, our just Nostradamus goggles on all year, it would have been good business to have these running backs because they produced 11 PPR RB2 weeks. And that's just, basing on who was the top performing player. But you look at it, in week one, it was RoJo RB32. Then Lenny got an RB3 performance. RoJo wins the next 4 weeks, RB31, RB14, RB17, RB4. Then Lenny gets a 3-week stretch, RB15, 26, 27. It goes RoJo, Lenny, RoJo, bye, RoJo, Lenny, RoJo. So we had no rhyme or reason to who was going to necessarily be the guy, but whoever was the guy, we saw actually start to put up some serious fantasy numbers. Takes us to the rankings. I favor Ronald Jones over Leonard Fournette this year because it was before his late season kind of injury woes, which consisted of COVID, a broken finger, and a calf injury. It was the RoJo show more times than not. He had at least 15 combined carries and targets in 8 of his 13 starts before landing on the COVID list. Fournette reached that threshold just 4 times the entire regular season. And again, we know RoJo is the worst receiver of the group. So with Giovani Bernard coming in to be a potentially higher use pass down back, I think he hurts Fournette more than he hurts RoJo. So I have RoJo as my PPR RB31. Fournette is the RB32. Gio is my RB49. Their ADPs are RB34 for RoJo, RB33 for Fournette, and RB52 for Gio. So I'm slightly higher on each of these guys, and I do disagree with the notion that Fournette should be going ahead of RoJo. Again, we saw RoJo before those late season injuries, and it was bad. I know he played. He toughed it out in the playoffs after, I think he missed that Washington game. Maybe he played the whole way. But I remember there was a specific play in that Saints game where he actually got loose for a second, and you just saw him. Okay, he did miss the Washington game. Comes back against the Saints, does okay enough, 62 yards on 13 carries, but literally finally gets a hole. And instead of running away from the whole defense like we saw him do a couple times throughout the year, at least on that one 98-yard run, RoJo was already limping out of bounds. So again, it was the calf, the finger, and COVID. Just whole, wrecking ball of things prevented RoJo from really having the sort of end of the season that we would have hoped for based on what it was able to accomplish in weeks, 1 through 14. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, everybody. Want to say, though, and I'm not just the only one grinding here at this great company. We also have the PFF College Football Preview Magazine, which is out now, and you can get 600-plus pages of analysis, best returning players for all 130 teams, advanced scheme breakdown, straight to schedule, win projections, and much more. Seriously, people that work, Seth Galina and Anthony Triage did on this was absolutely fantastic. And again, that's all available with any PFF College or PFF Edge subscription. Get it now for less than $8. Gotta love that. And also, people, if you like fantasy football, if you like playing fantasy for money, you need to check out Underdog Fantasy. Underdog's got everything, including season long and playoff best ball. You guys know what best ball is by now. So go to Underdog Fantasy and deposit $10 using promo code PFF and get a free PFF Edge in your subscription. That's promo code PFF. Draft now at Underdog Fantasy. Quick thing to get off my chest. Was driving over here shortly before this podcast. And man, I hate traffic more than anything. Like, my favorite part about not having a consulting job anymore was just going to work every day and having to sit in traffic. And I just walk in bad attitude after that because I can't stand traffic because I don't understand it, because I freaking go visit New York and there's it just makes no rhyme or reason. Why is there traffic on 6 p.m. on a Sunday? But as much as I hate traffic, I hate when the GPS, when, I see, okay, I want to go here. It's going to be a 40-minute drive instead of a 15-minute drive. So I know there's going to be traffic. I'm not happy about that traffic, but hey, it's 40 minutes. I can live with that. I feel like every time, even when the thing already knows there's traffic, your time goes up like 10 or 15 minutes from what it originally was. Lie to me. Tell me it's going to be 60, and then hopefully it's actually 40, but worst case is 60. Like, they need to put in like a 20% buffer. Whatever they calculate your time is for the traffic, give me an extra 20% on that. It's like when you set your clocks for, an extra 5 minutes. So you're, even if you think, I guess you put them if you put your clocks back all right, I'm confusing myself now. Basically, I get tired of looking at my GPS when, it's just lying to me at some point about the traffic. So sorry to all, potential GPS engineers out there if I'm shitting on your life works, but, figure it out, or maybe just I'll stop complaining and continue to not drive as much as possible. Again, people, thank you for tuning in to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. New episodes every single day throughout the summer. I invite you to check out, especially our Wednesday edition with Andrew Erickson, where we went through all the NFC's potential wildcard players in terms of, guys that might have a bigger role than we're thinking about, or maybe the forgotten member in an explosive offense, CC Blake Jarwin with the Cowboys. You can also find all my articles and written work over at pff.com. We will have a fantasy draft guide out here soon after the July 4th weekend. So hope everybody has a great time, celebrate, drink some brews, do whatever you want to do, hang with the fam, and be sure to come back to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast when you feel like chilling again. So I'm Ian Hartitz. Until next time, take care, everybody.